I'm Rosemary or Rosa Laser. I'm known by many names, Rosemary or Rose or Rosie. So I guess that's it in a nutshell. I was born in 1931, which you can calculate how old I am now, in Wayzata, Minnesota. Why, I was the youngest of 5 by close to 7 years. And so I was a spoiled child. My parents and my brothers and sisters all doted on me. But I got unspoiled rather rapidly as I grew up into my teens. All my grandparents immigrated from Germany, and the only one I know anything about much was my grandma Ditter. Came over from Baden-Baden, Germany, when she was 21 years old. My mother was Ottilia, but everybody called her Tilly. She was a very gentle person. She even spoke softly. You know, she was only 67 years old when she died. To you, that probably would seem kind of old. But she had many health issues. She was old when I was born. She was 44 and a half years old when I was born. And several of her sisters were, should I say, disturbed that Tilly was going to have a baby. And so when I was in my teens, Aunt Katie said to me, she says, "Well, Rose, I guess it's a good thing that Tilly has you after all." My dad was a strict disciplinarian. I didn't really appreciate him until years later, but I could tell that the things he did at one time and all the time were because he loved us. And then when I got engaged, he said to me, he started to cry, and he said, "Rose, when are you going to leave us?" I never doubted my parents' love. I used to take my dolls down by the lake, and I would often walk up the road with this dog and sheep Oscar, and the neighbor man, Pete Mooney, got the biggest kick out of it. And in the wintertime, I skated back. We called it a bay where the ice was really nice and smooth, and that was really fun. I played a lot with my cousin Jerry Reiser. We called each other on the phone, and he'd say, "Rose, can you come up now? Can you come? We had a lot of fish fries." We played in cars and we fished. I'd sit out there sometimes and read when I should have been helping my mother. Holy Name, where I lived, was a German community, and Hamel was a very French community. And so the Germans in Holy Name and where I lived thought they were superior. I think they thought they were more hardworking than most of the French in Hamel, and it was okay. But as time goes on, those issues become non-existent. After high school, I had some work. I worked at Hearts Cafe in Wayzata, and I also worked for a chiropractor on Nicollet Avenue in Minneapolis. So those were my 2 away-from-home jobs. I stayed at home until I got married. I got married when I was 24 years old. And in those days, girls or even boys, they tended to stay home until they were married. Well, I met Stan at a dance in Rogers, and he asked me to dance, and when we were done dancing, he said, "Thank you," and he walked away. After that, You know, it just seems like I was his girl from then on. I couldn't get rid of him.
Well, my goodness, it's been 50 years, but it doesn't seem that long. And I guess I was very fortunate, you know, when you're choosing a husband or looking for a husband, I say, you know, you don't really think carefully enough about it. But so I'll have to say that I was lucky in getting the man I did. He was very loyal and a hard worker, and I never had to worry that he wouldn't be there. And we were also blessed with 9 children, 7 daughters and 2 sons, and also 7 great son-in-laws and 2 daughter-in-laws, and 23 grandchildren. So I guess that's quite a track record.
One of my girlfriends said to me, Rose, she said, you and Stanley are alike. You're just alike. So I've never looked back. We got married in 1956 at Holy Name.
Well, I guess I have to say that I consider myself very lucky for getting the wife I have. First of all, she came from a good family, and when I think back all the girls I ever went with, that she's the one that was best suited for me. She's someone I could take anywhere, not having to be ashamed of her. She was a homemaker. She was a good cook and good baker, I guess you know that. And she was always satisfied to stay home and be a homemaker. She didn't have any desire to go out and get a job or anything like that, which is something what I wanted. Both of us always agreed pretty much on vacations and different things that we did. We both kind of liked the same things, so I think that I consider myself very lucky for having her for my wife, and we've had a good 50 years together.
Very close decision.
All right, we got it!
Very close decision.
Yeah.
We thought the women had this a little bit better organized.
Oh.
We gave them one more point to the men. But we were very impressed with all the talent.
Girls rule. It was a lot of fun. He was a good dancer, and probably a better dancer than I was. He took dancing lessons with his sisters, and so I could polka better than he could, but he also could do some of the fancier dances better than I. We worked, but we had a lot of fun in our marriage. We lived on the old Laser farmstead for 10 years. We had a dairy farm, yeah. It was strictly dairy, and 1 dog and some cats and a bunch of kids. We had 7 girls and 2 boys. Stanley did a lot as far as fixing up the house, because they had lived in Wisconsin, he and his parents and some of the family, and they were dirt poor. And when they moved to Osseo, the house was in really bad shape. In those days, the old houses were cold. The floors were so cold that the wind blew in, and it froze in the pantry. And when Renee was born, she was just a little tiny bit of a girl. I had to keep her out in the kitchen by the reconverted wood stove into an oil stove so she wouldn't get too cold. Stan went to Princeton one time. He had a friend that said, well, I'm going to show you this nice farm in Princeton. stand. And he came home and he said he was very impulsive. He said, I'm going to buy that farm. And sure as heck, the next spring, we were living in Princeton. During all this time of living on 2 farms, we built a lot of buildings. Well, we built in Princeton, we built onto the house and onto the barn. We built a machine shed, maybe a couple silos. I can't tell you how a garage. There was always a building project that was going on. Plus, I had a lot. In those days, people didn't have their lunch. You cooked for them. So I constantly was cooking for laborers all the time. And it didn't make any difference if I had a baby the week before or anything. They still came in and they expected a meal.
Sounds really tough.
No, it was tough, but then it also was exciting in a way because we never were really alone. There was always a milk truck coming in every day, and the veterinary came in all the time, and the inseminator came in. We didn't have a bull, so we had our cows artificially inseminated. And there was just people coming and going, it seems all the time. The gas man, the feed grinder, it never ended. One time when we were living in Princeton, and I thought, I've had enough of this. I don't care who drives in, how many times the phone rings or anything. I'm gonna go upstairs and go into one of the bedrooms. And I did that, and I can't remember how it ended, but I'm sure I got up when somebody drove in or something. So. We moved to a nice home by Stansfield Lake, and we were there almost 25 years, and it really was an amazing part. We were very blessed. We went to see a real estate agent, and I told her what we wanted, and she says, well, I have just the place for you. And it was 10 miles out of town. And I says, well, gee, I don't want to live that far out of town. But we bought the place, and it was a nice home, and the family all enjoyed coming there and visiting. It didn't make any difference. I remember one time when the family all stayed there a lot. They sometimes stayed overnight. And I remember one time when our son-in-law came with his family, and he says, Rosie says, I understand you're having a sleepover tonight. Well, I hadn't heard about it until then, but that's how comfortable they felt about coming.
Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64? Send me a postcard, drop me a line, waiting point of view. Indicate precisely what you mean to say. You're sincerely wasted away. Give me your answers, fill in the flaws. Who could ever more? Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64?
involved with church a lot, and both Stan and I helped with multiple things at church. And I think that was our sideline, so to speak. I'm a very strong Catholic, and I have respect for all the other religions. But, I could never be anything but. Catholicism has been meant a lot to me. I pray the rosary every morning, and then I also go to Mass there. And the homilies are very inspiring and very good. And I feel you're never too old to learn. I believe in what the Catholic Church teaches, and it's important to me. I had a brother that was a priest. I called him Bernie, because his name was Bernard. And my sister was a nursing nun. She worked at St. Mary's in Duluth. I think that the nuns at the Holy Name really impacted her, that she wanted to be a nun. And anyway, I remember something my mother said once. I was kind of a naughty little girl at times, and she says, Rose, my sister's name was Bertrand when she was a sister. She says, Rose, she says, you should really be nicer to Gert. She's really a saint. They gave their lives for the church. And I couldn't think of turning my back on them. I would say that life is short, even if it's long. And that's what my father-in-law always said that. And I think that's excellent advice. And another thing that my mother said was, it's not what people say, it's why they say it. People are all basically nice. They're all human beings, no matter what they are. I think it's important to know your neighbors. I know if I need help, my next door neighbors are right there for me. And you influence people more, not by what you say, but how you are, how you act. You just can't live for yourself. You have to think of other people. I think now when, in my very senior years, it was to see how well they all did. They all have a college education. 3 of them have masters. I don't know of anybody around here that I know whose kids have accomplished that much. Everyone is a hardworking individual, as well as their spouses, and the grandchildren also. It wasn't always so nice for them because they had to, they weren't involved in a lot of sports or activities or anything, just a bare minimum. And but their outlet was 4-H, which turned to be very good. They all come to visit me. There's never a time that goes by that someone doesn't call. Even my son in Japan will call me periodically, and he travels halfway around the world to come back to see family. But all of them have been very, very good to me. I love them all. I don't know who would I do without if I didn't have them. They're all favorites.